And the eighth letter begins with a phrase that we say every day in the morning prayers. Zereya tzedakis matzmiach yeshuais. Or if you want it, Zereya tzedakot matzmiach yeshuot. That God, He sows with S-O-W, all right, to plant. He plants tzedakos, and He causes salvation, deliverance to sprout forth. So, of course, this is a metaphor to planting, and that you plant something, something sprouts forth. What are you planting? The plural word of tzedakah is tzedakos or tzedakot, which means acts of righteousness and acts of charity. So those two things are what's planted, and that causes deliverance, salvation. Of course, we need to understand, what does that mean exactly? How do we understand that? So we begin to understand that concept by quoting from the Talmud. Talmud tells us that Rabbi Elazar, he would give a coin to tzedakah for charity, and then he would pray. As the verse says in Tehillim, in Psalms, through Tzedek I will behold your face. In other words, through righteousness, which is related to the word charity, tzedakah, I will behold the face of God. Now, what does that mean, the face of God? What does that mean? And why specifically through charity, that in prayer, as a preface to prayer, charity will allow us to behold the face of God. Of course, face, all of these things are metaphors. Sowing is a metaphor. Planting is a metaphor. Springing forth, sprouting forth is a metaphor. Beholding God's face is a metaphor. The only thing that's not a metaphor is giving. You don't metaphorically give. You got to give, right? So what does this mean? It means that there's an inward manifestation of godliness, of God, to us at a time of prayer that is prompted, that comes about, that is affected, caused by tzedakah, by charity. So the Alter Rebbe explains that because of God's loving kindness, and we are granted a divine revelation. Now, what does this mean? The light of God is the infinite light of God, Ein Sof, radiates quantitatively and in a great manner, qualitatively, in an intense way, in the higher worlds. Higher worlds means spiritual worlds. And being that it's so great and intense, that the everything in those worlds, the angels, the souls, are absorbed by this light. They're nullified by it. They are sensing their source. They're not sensing their own limited being, even though they're limited beings. But that's not what they sense. That's what's happening in the spiritual worlds, that this is, as it were, the face of God. Just sort of, you kind of, when do you get absorbed in another person? When you talk to them is when you're face to face. You're not absorbed, in the same way when you talk on the phone, because you're not face to face, right? You're absorbed You know, a face of a person absorbs you. Why? Because the face connects you to their inwardness, to their neshama, to their soul. So that's what the metaphor over here is, that this intense light in the spiritual worlds is absorbed by the souls, the angels there. And this is what in the prayers we're talking about when we say the words that Through Tzedek I said God sows, plants tzedakah, and causes deliverance to spread forth. So this is something in the spiritual world, because after, for those familiar with the order of prayers, so this is the blessings of the Shema before we say the Shema, before Avos Olam. So we're speaking about in the spiritual world about the Srafim, the Oifanim, and the Chayes HaKodesh, different kinds of angels, and their experience of the divine light that's being absorbed by them. And we make reference to it because now this light, which is good, radiates from that up there to us. How? By those who meditate upon God, His name, desire to worship Him in their heart with it through prayer, and have a sense of His presence. So through the desire to serve in prayer, to have God present, then God's light will be revealed to this individual. This is God's kindness that He illuminates of Him. Think about it. You know, you can be with another person and their soul is, you look at their face and you can see how their soul is illuminated, and you're absorbed in that person's soul that is revealed and illuminating. God does that of Him, that we have that of Him, that we can experience that of Him. In the time of prayer, for those who truly want to worship, those who want to worship through the service of the heart, prayer, davening, thinking about meditating upon God and the presence of God, the realness of God. So this is a kindness that God does to allow us to be absorbed, to be illuminated by His presence. This is what's drawn down to us. This is God's kindness. How do we achieve that? When we're kind. When we arouse God's kindness by our kindness down here. That before we stand in prayer, we take care of another. We're charitable. Giving a coin to charity. Literally, it means to put a coin in the tzedakah, pushka, in the tzedakah box. As opposed to just simply putting it in the charity box. Achieves that. It's a short class. That's today's class. Okay. So, let's unpack this a bit. What do we take from this? Well, some of it's pretty straightforward. But the idea of giving charity before you start to pray, before you turn towards God, that you should be illuminated by His presence. We need to illuminate someone else to give to another. Now, sometimes the giving, you can't find the pauper, or you can't find the institution that needs the money right now. So you can give into a pushka into a charity box, which is amazing. A simple act like that, because we're charitable, we're kind, we're giving, elicits, arouses God's kindness. Then now in my prayers, they could be illuminated with his presence. Now I have to want that. That's the key over here. I have to want that. I have to meditate upon that. I have to have that sense of God's presence. And then we can be illuminated. That's a gift. What's the gift? Because for most people, for most of us, prayer is, just kind of verbalizing, saying things, or it's just me requesting things. But that I should be illuminated, that I should feel connected, that's a different level. That's a different, and that's not usually the mindset. The mindset is sort of like a kind of ball and chain, that, an obligation of prayer, but not that we're going to behold the face, the inwardness, illuminating us through the prayer. That's the beauty over here. So the prayer isn't to get something, to get a thing from God, even though we make requests of God even. But that's not the concept of prayer. That I need things in my life, and God is the ultimate, beholder, the holder of all things. The holder of all things. But he's not. I mean, he is, of course. But that's not what prayer is. It's to behold the face of God, the inwardness of God, the illumination that's so powerful in the spiritual worlds that the angels and the souls, they are so absorbed in the divine that we could be here too. For what reason? For no thing. Just for the presence of God that I am experiencing, that I am absorbed in, not for the gain thereof. That's take some time to, prayer for no gain, for no thing. Just the illumination of our soul. Okay. Any questions? Any comments? Any thoughts on this idea over here that we've shared? Let me see on Facebook over here if we have any questions. I see Curtis has. Elisheva, I would be interested in hearing your interpretation on the Kabbalistic prayer, Skina Sudasa, where the image represents. Yes, that would be very interesting, but not right now. Another time, maybe. I'd have to, first of all, look into it, and secondly, if we would have the time to that. But yeah. Okay, some difficulties people are having with notifications for the class on Facebook. Okay, I have no connection with that or don't know anything about that. Daisy, but I don't like to pray at all. How can I be illuminated by not praying willfully? It's not possible. It's not possible. Sorry, Daisy. It doesn't work that way. You have to want to serve. You have to want to serve with your heart to God. And you want to have God's presence. If you don't, maybe why you don't like prayer is because what prayer just means to you as opposed to what it could mean to you. In other words, it could mean to you something very beautiful. It could mean to you something very profound, and maybe it doesn't mean that to you now. So I just gave some of the ways that people look at prayer and how we maybe should look at it differently. And if we do look at it differently, then maybe we'd want to pray. This concept that we've gone through many times, and it's so important, and I don't think we get it. Or not that we don't get it, we do get it. I'm sorry, we get it, but that it should become a part of us. That's the difficulty. So we all want things, material things and spiritual things, but things, because things make us feel good, right? Things make us feel good. So, oh, I've got a beautiful, good pen, and you like pens, and you like to write. It feels good to have a good pen, right? It feels good that if you like, to drink, you like coffee, you got a real good coffee. I like my things. I like my coffee as a thing. And I like things that you do for me, right? Also in relationships. I like the thing that you do. You make me feel good. Because your jokes are so funny. And, you're just so upbeat. And I like that, and, so kind to me. You do so much for me. So those are things. Take away the things. What's left? Is there a person left there? Take away the things that God gives us. Is there a God left there? So maybe we just, we don't have to come out to God for things. I mean, we have to, but maybe the problem is that we want things in our life. And one of the things we don't want prayer. That's not a thing I want. So maybe the whole problem begins with things. Now, we're human, so we won't get away from it entirely. Only the righteous do. Only the righteous do. As the Alter Rebbe said, I don't want anything. The Alter Rebbe said, and this brings out the point. He says, in prayer, I think, or many times he had said this. I don't want anything. I don't want your Gan Eden, your Garden of Eden. I don't want your Olam Haba. All I want is you alone. It's Dichale. That's all I want. Is you. In human relationships, if we can get there. In other words, what I want is you, not something of you, or thing of you, but you. You, just you. You. And that's a little hard to it's not human. It's transcending the human condition. It's godly. It's godly. And if we want just the relationship, we want the connection, we want God. Not for because he gives us things. I mean, not denying that he's giving, but like, I want it beyond that. And this is hard. And by the way, just as because we're talking about the topic, this is the idea of getting married, by the way. That it gives us the opportunity to get to a point that I want you in my life, not for the things that I derive from you, not because you're so beautiful and you're so rich, someone would say that I want you because of your wealth. I wouldn't like that. So what, for your beauty, it is okay? Or for your smile, it is okay? For your, warmth, it is okay? Well, what's the difference? Essentially, it's the same. Now, initially, that's what gets us to connect to another and get married. Because I like your warmth. I like your sense of humor. So we begin that way in the relationship, but it shouldn't end up that way. It should. I want you because it's you. In other words, there's something much deeper. It's a core thing. It's an essential bond beyond things for no thing. Even when I don't get, even if you don't make dinner tonight or serve me or do something for me, I still want. Again, that's a level to reach. That is not something that is, it's counterintuitive of the human condition. The condition of humanness is things and wanting things, needing things, lusting things, addicted to things, good things, bad things, whatever, things. And that's the challenge over here. As he says, who will be able to have this light of God that will radiate upon them? Those who want the presence of God, meditate upon that, and desire to worship Him with their heart, to connect. It didn't say here anything like, I want something from you, God, in my prayers. I want something of you. I need something from you. No, nothing. No mention of that. I hope that's clear. Curtis, besides tzedakah, and I hope that this is not off topic, but I'm reading a book of Nachman. Chabad his practice, he's waited this before, during. His bainin is not his way to do this. We practice, yes. Oh, ideally at least. Yeah, his bainin nus is opposed to his baidedus. Yeah. Asher, is there a right time before or during or after the Amidah, or before, during, or after the repetition for giving tzedakah? So here the tzedakah is before you actually start. Before you start hoidu, then to give tzedakah. That is the right time. Not before the Amidah or after the Amidah, or the repetition. This is before you start davening, before you start prayer, to give. Yeah, that would be the best thing. Now, if you didn't, then there is by Vorach David. There's a custom of giving then tzedakah. That's before Baruch Hu, before Yishtabach. That there is difficult. Alice says it's hard for her to concentrate during davening. By the way, that's all of us. I have that problem. So I just saw a beautiful video from Jem, the Rebbe of a rabbi. Many years ago went into the Rebbe and said that he prays in the middle of the Amidah. He sees his mind is wandering. So the Rebbe told him, you're not alone. There's a problem for many. You're not alone. So he said, the Rebbe told him, so he says, well, so what should I do? So the Rebbe told him that concentrate on one prayer in the Amidah and every word very clearly, and let it, connect to it, and go over that prayer day after day until it really becomes a part of you. And then go to the next prayer, then the next one. 19 prayers in the Amida. So do that. And then you'll see how those prayers become a part of you and natural for you. So that's, I just saw that this morning. It's actually beautiful. So I hope that helps Alice. And helps us all. Elisheva, despite not praying for things, should we not still verbalize to Hashem that we have needs that even though He knows? Does that not show our emunah in His mercy, asking knowing that He'll answer? Very good, Elisheva. So, I hear it saying, don't, it's not about needs, it's not about things, but yet in the Amida we speak about Rifa'inu, heal us, Baruch Aleinu, give us sustenance, livelihood. So we're asking for things. So the truth is, the way we ask when we come to the Amida, after all of the prayers that lead up to it, we're not asking for things. We're asking, first of all, in the plural. So it's not just for me, but it's for us. It's a collective whole that we're asking for. That's firstly. Secondly is that we're asking out of a place of not because I need it, not because I want this, but it's needed. In other words, there's such a self-abnegation, such a nullification, such a connection. We're up the ladder, we're on the fourth rung, the world of Atzilus, to the world of Atzilus, where it's complete abnegation, that my asking is not an asking for things. It's not an asking for me. It's in the plural we're asking. It's even the things that are for me in healing and livelihood and the like, is in order that I could serve you better. Because we usually serve God better when we have, if we're hungry or don't have food, it's harder. If we don't have a proper housing or proper health, it's harder to serve. So we're asking in order that I could serve you better. But that takes a whole davening to get there. That we climb up the ladder from Asiya, Yetzira, Bria, and then finally Shemona Esrei is in Atzilus. Atzilus means self-abnegation, no sense of self. I mean, this is ideally what it means, the prayer. But I'm asking for self. I'm asking, but not in the selfish ask. I hope that makes clearer. And yes, we need to verbalize it. And yes, we need to recognize that God is the source of everything. So absolutely correct, Elisheva. So June says to give when you have plenty is not really giving when it hurts or you have to work hard. Yeah, so in other words, give in a way, you're right, June. Give that you feel a little pinch. That it feels like, right? Absolutely correct, June. Now, that doesn't mean each time has to be that way, but definitely we should give in a way that, I want a little extra than, I'm so comfortable to give. So if your comfort level is like $10, so give more. Comfort level is $100, so give more. Whatever you're capable and comfortable in. Okay. So prayer won't be boring if people can, prayer won't be boring because if based on what we just explained, and it'll be meaningful. Okay. How do you ask Hashem for needs if you have the amun and bitachon that He will give it to you? Because you're coming. That's why there's also asking when we ask for fa'enu to heal us, right? It's plural. We're asking in the plural because it's not only about us. As Chassidim used to say, in my piece of bread it is yours and mine. So in other words, in my livelihood, there's that which is for you and for me. And they would say you before me. So if we see ourselves individually, so then that's part of the problem. If we see ourselves part of a greater whole, and that we're here to serve that greater whole. So when we're asking, we're not even asking for ourselves in a sense, which is pretty powerful, pretty amazing when you think about it. Any questions? Oh, everybody's quiet on Clubhouse. What's going on over here? Oh. Okay, Michael.
Shalom Aleichem.
Aleichem Shalom. Please share.
Okay, Rabbi. So I took notes and wrote down some notes down so I could, talk better. So we were talking about us asking God for things to help us serve Him, such as food, bread, whenever we need housing. Well, how is it that I feel like I'm serving God better when I'm lacking all of these things? Because after all, I don't have any needs, right? I never wanted to be born in the first place.
Right.
So how does that come into play? I never wanted to eat nor drink.
Right. Very true. So, in other words, what you're saying, Nicole, is God created this human condition that we need to eat and drink, that we need to be healthy, we need to have clothing, a roof over our head. There are things that we need. So when we come to recognize that, hey, the reason I may need those things has nothing to do with me, right? It's God that created. I didn't create this world in a way that I need clothing, I need a home for security, for comfort. None of these things, God didn't ask me. He created the world. This is the way He created it. So the fact that there's things that we may need, well, it's really, if you want to put it that way, as you're saying, it's really God's things. So when you're even asking, then you're not asking for your things. You need to eat, you need to clothe yourself, you need to have a home. No, like you said, we didn't ask for this. God created this. This is the human condition that He created. And therefore, in a sense, to go to a greater and higher level, and this is really a much higher awareness, is that my eating and drinking, my clothing, my home, these things, they're really God's things that I ultimately, if I could do for Him, for His sake, that's already a much more profound level. Doing it for His sake. Yeah, I eat, drink for His sake. Because He made this world in such a way that I need this in order to live. But ultimately to live, why? Because that's what He wants. So imagine, this is the ultimate we've spoken about in the past, that it's not what I want, ich darf, I've told this story, but it's min darf. It's needed. It's needed. Why is it needed? Why is the food and drink needed? Why is the home needed? Why are these things needed? Because God needs me to have those things, because now I could either use them just as a human, because the human condition dictates and therefore I'm very needy of it, or it's not really that I'm needy of it. God needs it because he created the condition this way. So he needs me to have food. He needs me to have clothing and a home and all these things. So when I have that awareness, now I can turn all those things into a godly connection. So clothes now become a tool of godliness. Food becomes a tool of godliness. Your home is just a means to bring more godliness into this world. All the things now are not things anymore because they're things for godliness. So that's not a thing. It's not a thing that I need or want. It's a thing that God needs and wants. So now I'm doing it for him because that's what he needs from me. That's what he wants from me. That's what he created me for. So thank you for bringing that up, because that brings it to,
Thank you, Rabbi, for explaining. I do remember the story you told us about you needing something for a lecture.
Yes, exactly.
And I also, please go on.
Yeah, as I was told, who are you that you need? That was a good awakening. Yeah, what do you mean, I need? Chassidim of old, this was an older chassid, and Chassidim of old would never say, I need. Ich darf in Yiddish. It says, min darf, it's needed. Darf men. It's a very, it's needed, we need.
I have an extra question, if that's okay, and you have time.
Sure.
Because I really took the notes.
Sure.
You told us that when we were talking about marriage, right? You were saying that I like you because you're you, right? Now, the following question just came up in my mind. I mean, I know the human structure, the godly soul, the animal soul, and the body, but what really makes me me?
Your soul, your divine soul. I mean, what makes you you? Not just, I shouldn't say that. It's not just your divine soul. It's not just your divine soul. I mean, your animal soul too is a part of you. So it is the soul of you, the divine soul, the animal soul. We need to appreciate a person's animal soul, and meaning the struggles that they have as a result of that. So we need to not just, appreciate their divine soul, but they have an animal soul that brings struggles to them, challenges. So we need to appreciate that. That's also part of us. And that struggle that the animal soul gives us the place where we can grow. So we need to appreciate that too. And not, just the good part of the person, but the struggle of the person too. Does that make sense?
No, it does. And that also reminds me of another chassid story. I think you know it.
Which is?
The one with the blind man and the mute man. But it doesn't matter. Thank you, Rabbi, for the insight.
Okay. No, I'm not aware of that. Okay. Beautiful. Amazing. Is there a prayer book for children that are still learning how to pray? I'm sure that there are. I can't think of offhand exactly. I'd have to look into that. Yeah, but for sure, if you go on Kahot.org, KEHOT, that's the Chabad publishing site, you should be able to find there. Okay. Thank you, David, for putting that up. All right. I know now. I know now. What do we know now? Okay, I think I missed some. All right, folks. Reminder today, Rambam at 12:45. Come and join us. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Zichin Kadesh in Montreal, Canada. It's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. May we all be blessed with a wonderful day. Thank you all for joining.